Welcome back, everybody. My name is Tim. This is another Real Ideal Gear Review. And today we're looking at a completely different kind of a watch review. We're going to be going through watches that might help you get out of a sticky situation or a situation which is less than desirable and even maybe highly stressful. And you might say to yourself, well, what does a watch have to do with that? But I think it really can be helpful. So we're going to take a look at a couple of different scenarios where you're away from home base. And my definition for home base is anywhere where you kind of regularly go back and forth. So if you're traveling, it might be a hotel room. It might be a relative's home if you're staying away. Home base could also be your own home, but maybe you've traveled away from home for a day trip and you're further away from home than normal and those kind of situations. So when you're away from home base, significantly away from home base, and something bad happens, where your ability to have communications, where your ability to make phone calls, mitigate kind of maybe stolen credit cards, those kind of things become a very big concern of yours. So we're going to take a look at this and we're going to go through a few scenarios and see how a watch can help with those kinds of scenarios. So let's take a look. So this is the vehicle that I drive around in when I'm not driving my truck around for work. And this vehicle has a lot of things about it that are very nice. It's kind of a home away from home for some reasons, not all reasons. But it has the comforts, air conditioning. It has the, clock. It has all kinds of things in here that I can, food. I can store beverages in here. Can't keep anything cold very long in here, except for the air conditioning. But at any rate, this vehicle can serve as kind of a resource depot as I'm traveling. And I think that's kind of the point. Like when you get into a vehicle and you're going to go out of town, you're going to put some things in the vehicle that will help you make the trip a little bit more comfortable, but also maybe a few things in case something happens, like maybe a couple of tools like a crescent wrench or screwdriver, some duct tape. And those three things can pretty much fix anything, including relationships. So in my mind, the vehicle, it really is a great storage for resources. The problem is what happens when the vehicle breaks down or if you're in a car accident. So if the vehicle breaks down, let's just say the alternator goes out and you're driving along, you see the headlights start to dim. It's like, oh, shoot. And then you see the warning light come on your dash, but you're out driving alone and you're on some kind of, highway or interstate and you have to get to the next exit. You want to get to the next exit. Maybe there's a place that you can pull off there. Maybe there's not a gas station or anything like that, but you can at least pull off the interstate and get out of the way of traffic. So a situation like that, a car breakdown, I looked up online to see if there was any information out there, survey information, and I came across a survey that was done in the UK where they surveyed 3,000 drivers, and they found that 15% of the time vehicles break down when you're out of town. So it's not 1 in 5, but it's not that far away from 1 in 5 or 20%, but let's just say it's 1 in 6. When it comes to the likelihood that you're going to have a vehicle issue while you're traveling out of town. So the next question is, so how prepared are you for something like that? Well, now in this video, this is about watches, so we're not going to get into, what kind of tools you should have in your vehicle, what kind of, food, water, keeping warm, that kind of thing in your vehicle. We're not going to talk about that stuff much at all. We'll briefly mention that. But we're talking about watches. And really, we're looking at, as far as like traveling like this, a lot of people will have in their vehicle a beater watch, because if you go along going out hiking or something like that, and you're driving along some kind of logging road or whatever, and you want to get out and do some hiking, you may want to have a different watch with you. And so there's a whole bunch of watches to choose from in this situation, not the least of which is the infamous F91, which I'm not a fan of. But it does tell the time. It has an alarm. Let's say you're going to walk, for X number of minutes, and then you have to turn around and come back. Remember, once you get to a destination, you're only halfway home. You got to turn around and walk back. So I think alarms are underrated when it comes to hiking, because it's one way to say this is a hard stop. We're turning around and going back. So I think that's where these watches really come into play. So I think a better option than the F91 as far as just the size of the display. Certainly the light is way better, and it's also much more comfortable to wear on the wrist, except for maybe for people who really want that ultra light watch. The F91 is going to fit that. But the W217 is a great watch. Much better, much more legible display, great light, wider strap. And for guys like, that have larger wrists like me, I have an average to above average size wrist. I need a watch that has a little bit more length to the strap so that the keepers kind of keep everything together on the watch. Next up is the F201. You've seen this one before. I love the F201. You have great display, awesome light. You have programmable alarms, timer, dual time, great watch. Water resistance isn't very good, but we know that Casio kind of underrates their water resistant level on here. But it's also a smaller watch. So if you're looking for an upgrade from the F91, this is another option that I think is much, much better, far superior. Now, if you want something that's more tough, the Gray Man, the W800 is awesome. 100 meters of water resistance, 10-year battery. You have the stopwatch, you have the dual time, you have the programmable alarm. And if you spend about 15 minutes, you can take off a little bit of solder on one of the contact points. There's all kinds of videos out there on this. And then you end up with a timer that also is a recurring timer if you want it to be. So you get all of those features, and this is like $25. Great watch, 100 meters of water resistance on that watch. Now I've swapped this strap out for another strap on a watch that broke, and I was like, I like that strap better. I'm putting this on the Gray Man because I love the Gray Man. Now I think an even better watch when it comes to toughness, I say this reluctantly because I think it's such a weird looking watch, it's the DW290, okay? It's just as close to a G-Shock as you're going to get. You've got a lot of the same features that are built into the case design, 200 meters of water resistance, basic stuff, stopwatch, timer, dual time. It also has a flashing alert indicator on here. So if you want that versus the audible piece, you can swap between both of those, go from audible to a flashing alert if you want. All right, so those are some options when it comes to just telling the time. A beater watch that you have in the car that you can throw on the wrist, and maybe you take off. Now this is not a real expensive watch, but it's an expensive looking watch. You take this off and put a Timex on. You put a Casio on here, and now you're a little bit less conspicuous as far as maybe, you don't want to get robbed wherever you're at. So that might be another reason. Now, in a car accident, just keep in mind that the cell phone is a flying object. Unless you actually have it significantly and securely tied down, that cell phone is going to go flying through the air. More than likely, it's going to get broken when it hits something solid, which is most everything inside of a vehicle except for you. It may hit you, and you may absorb some of the cost of that physical experiment that you just went through. But the idea here is that your cell phone is probably not going to survive a car accident where you have significant speeds, probably over 15, probably 20 miles an hour or more. There is some significant inertia that's involved in an accident like that. So with that in mind, and your cell phone being a total loss, or let's say the alternator on your car goes out, the battery's going dead, and you're trying to get to a certain point, it's a high priority, you pull over, and you look down at your cell phone, and you've got 25% of your battery left, okay? And you're going to be here overnight. What do you do? Well, one of the things, I think you got to preserve the battery power, but if the battery goes dead overnight, now what do? You've lost your contacts information, you've lost the ability to look at a map, you've lost your ability to make any kind of internet connection or service, and you've also lost your ability to make a phone call. So all of those things go together with the loss of one device. Now, one of the things that you can recover from that are the contact numbers. So for instance, with a Databank, and I've said this before in other videos, but I think this is absolutely worth having in your vehicle, whether it's on you when you're driving or it's in your vehicle at all times. But to have a Databank Casio in your vehicle, you can put all the important phone numbers for health insurance, car insurance, credit card information. And I say credit card information as far as contact phone numbers, not the actual account numbers or anything like that, just so that you can make the phone call. You can put all that information in here. Relative information, maybe it's the relatives that you're traveling to go see. It could be the Forest Service if you're in the United States, to call for help. That might be a way to do that as well. Local law enforcement, when I travel out of state significantly, I'm looking for the county sheriff numbers, or I'm looking for, if you were to go out of country, I would have the U.S. Embassy numbers in here, or the embassy for the country in which you reside. Put that in here as well. Nobody really looks at these watches and says, oh, I got to have that, and they're going to steal it from you. I don't see it, especially this one, the DBC 32. Now the DBC 611 looks a little bit more 90s refined, but at the same time, I don't think this is really a high priority for someone taking it off your wrist. So to me, this is a great option for maintaining all of that contact information so that you can make these phone calls fast. But if you have one of these, you have that information at your fingertips. So to me, when you're traveling, have a Databank watch in your car or on your person. This is what I'm doing from now on. I actually have it on my wrist when I'm traveling. Or I'll put one watch in each. I'll have a watch that I want to wear here, and I'll put my Databank over here. And if I get into a shady spot, I'll just quick take this watch off, put it in my pocket, that kind of thing. But that's what I do when I'm traveling right now, is I'm always wearing, this is my traveling watch. When I'm literally moving from place to place, this is the watch I'm wearing. Now, you might say, well, what about when you're walking around as a tourist? Okay, I mean, you can add all kinds of different scenarios in here. It's like, well, then you're always wearing that watch. Why have any of these other watches like the San Martin? Well, I think you have to play this on a reasonable level. So what I do is I look at the highest risk for the most stress and anxiety, for the most need for that information, which to me is actual travel time in a plane, in a vehicle, on a hike, or maybe it's just going to a different place that is out of the norm. I'm just not around the people that I typically am around or that I know in the place that I typically know. So that's what I think this is for. I also forgot to mention auto mechanic shops, tire stores, like national tire chains like Goodyear, Firestone, some of the bigger ones like here in the Pacific Northwest, Les Schwab is a big one. You may not like the company, maybe you've had bad experiences with it, but have a phone number in here that gives you access to somebody that can help. National Auto Mechanics Shop. Firestone is a great one. They're nationwide. They do tires, they do vehicle maintenance and repairs, so that might be one to have in here as well. But having all that information in your vehicle, I think, is really important. Now, what if you're out hiking? This watch really isn't going to help you if you're out hiking and things go awry. I think when you're out hiking, you really need to have an analog watch. Learn how to find north with an analog watch. So wouldn't you know it, the last portion of this video got deleted when I was editing some of this on the camera because the clip was too long, it wouldn't download, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, to wrap this up, if you're going to use your watch as a compass, generally speaking, you're going to point the minute hand on the hour. So the minute hand will be at the 12 o'clock position. The hour hand will be somewhere else. Let's say it's at the 3 o'clock position. So you have 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You point the hour hand at the sun. The minute hand is going to point wherever it's going to point. And halfway in between those two hands is generally where it is going to be. It's not real specific. I like the rotating bezel on my watch to add a little more orienteering to this setup, but it's nothing really precise, but it does help. Now, overall, when it comes down to using a watch for these kinds of scenarios where your car breaks down, car accidents, wallet and phone are stolen, and don't forget when something gets stolen or lost, which is probably more likely the case than a car accident or your battery going dead on your car, how are you going to make the phone calls if they steal your wallet and your phone? Because a lot of people will have, with their phone, they will have the cards in the back of the phone. So if they get the phone, they get all your cards at the same time. So now what? How are you going to call the card companies to let them know that your cards have been stolen? So you got to have those phone numbers easily accessible. Timing is everything, especially in that kind of a situation. So love to hear. Now, it wouldn't be a video of mine without talking about flashlights, because beside watches, flashlights are another passion of mine. I think it's really important that when you have a vehicle that you're driving for longer distances, that you have one of these kinds of flashlights. And I'm going to throw all three of these up there, okay? This is the Sofern Q8 Plus. This is the Woobin L1. Just got this. This may be the best flashlight I have ever come across. I'm just going to say that for right now. And I'm coming at this not from an aesthetic perspective or, you've got all these different options on there, that's not what I'm looking for. What I'm looking for is some very basic things about what the flashlight does. So we'll talk about that in a minute. And then we have the Sofern IF23. I've done a review on this one. Check this out. This is a great flashlight. Let's start off with this one. You have two light sources. You have kind of your diffused reading light. You also have your main beam that comes out the top. Maximum output on here is 4,000 lumens, which is awesome. But the high, medium, and low and ultra low moonlight mode are also great levels. And I think those are much more important than the 4,000 maximum output. It also has a two-way clip. Now this may be too heavy of a flashlight for a two-way clip, but it will do it. Let's just put this on there. It will do it. Okay? I don't think it's the most trustworthy situation, but if I need my hands free, this flashlight will do it for at least a little while. Okay? Two-way clip, magnetic base, so I can stick this onto anything that's magnetic. Of course, everything in here is plastic right now, but obviously the inside of a hood, side of a car, that kind of thing. So you have that. You also have RGB lights on here, so if you need to have any kind of like a warning light, red light, extra red light for some reason, you can do that on here as well with a flashing light. The flashlight itself, the coolest part, this is the reason why I have this in the vehicle, is this is also a power bank. You can plug in a Type-C to charge this. You can plug in a Type-C to discharge and charge another device with this particular flashlight. So this is a portable power bank. This is part of why I'm rethinking my Tier 2, is because I think a flashlight like this takes care of two things in here. Takes care of a flashlight and a power bank. I don't need the power bank in there. I'll put this in there and make sure I have it charged up. And it's a 21700 battery, so it has significant staying power. This is the kind of stuff that I think people overlook when they look at these flashlights. It's like, oh, it has great lumen output, great side, but what else could it possibly do? Now that brings me to the next one, which I have not done a review on, which is the Wubin L1. It has dual lights. You have a floodlight here and a spotlight out the top. Now this doesn't necessarily have to be the top, because if I rotate this, now that becomes my side light and this becomes my top light, which is a flood. I love this. Magnetic tail cap, which means I can put this on here. I can rotate this any direction that I want. At the same time, I can run both of these lights. So if I had this configured on let's say it's on the back of a car like this, I could configure this, just rotate this, just turn the flashlight, and now I can shine something that is maybe a little more behind, down. Like I have multiple directions that I can shine with this rotating head. And this is also a power bank. So to me, this is another great option for a vehicle light. You have all the features you need for maintenance, repairs. Emergency light has a strobe light on here. It doesn't have any colors on here, which would be helpful, but it has a great floodlight. It has high, medium, low. The spotlight up top here has turbo, high, medium, low, and ultra low, or moonlight. Has all those features, strobe. Type-C charge and discharge to charge up other things. Has a one-way clip. That's a bummer. However, the one-way clip is oriented for a hat. So it's not a pocket wear. But again, if I rotate the clip, which there we go, now I've got my floodlight pointed down. I can run just the floodlight, I can run just the spotlight, or I can run both of them together. So this is just a fantastic light. And if the battery goes dead, I can do a quick change, swap in a new battery, and I'm back up to 100% again. So both of these flashlights, you can swap out batteries. Both of these have a lanyard loop hole on here if you want to put a lanyard. They come with lanyards as well. So I really like those flashlights. Now, last but not least, I got to make sure, no, it's not magnetic. I was thinking it was. This is the Sofern Q8 Plus. This one, I believe, has 3 18650 batteries in here or 3 21700s. I don't remember. I'll put that in the video so that we have that. But this also has just massive output, 16,000 lumen output, max output. But that's the parlor trick. What's really important is the high mode and the medium mode. Those two modes will run longer. Medium in particular will run, as long as the batteries are alive and have some juice. High will kind of step down. But those are the two modes I'm more interested in because I need sustained light. Okay, so this is called that pop can flashlight. Great light. You're going to get a lot of run time out of this, especially at the medium low and the super low or ultra low modes. So great flashlight. Again, this flashlight also serves as a power bank. Now, significantly more capacity, so you can do more with this. You could charge a couple of phones up with this. I don't know that you're going to get more than maybe a full smartphone charge out of an 18650, assuming that the 18650 is fully charged. but at least you're going to charge it up to a degree where you could probably use it more, maybe half a charge or 3/4 of a charge. Haven't tried that yet. I don't really care that much about that, because when it comes to that kind of a situation, I'm making minimal phone calls. Okay, I'm not going to be on the phone forever, and I'm certainly not going to be searching the web at night, watching YouTube videos, except for realidealgear.com or Real Ideal Gear channel. So anyway, this is probably not that. The Sofer and IF23 is kind of the happy medium. I think this would actually charge an iPhone or a smartphone up completely. You're probably going to totally discharge the battery in here when you're doing that. So keep in mind, what do you want to have? And this is where the smartphone usage, like in a situation like that, I'm not using the flashlight on the smartphone. I'm using the flashlight here because I want to preserve my communications with my cell phone. I want to be able to make a phone call with it. I don't need a frickin' flashlight on it. That's what this is for. So I can switch and preserve battery juice in the smartphone while using the battery on the flashlight. I didn't mention this, but there's another light that I should have included in this video that I'm just now putting in. I'm splicing this in. And that is an emergency light that also has a flashlight built into it. Something that really stands out for your vehicle, especially if it's pulled on the side of a road where there might be a lot of traffic. And that is the Guardian Angel Elite or the Guardian Angel Micro. These lights are fantastic. You have a bunch of different functions as far as the different light patterns, but it also has a flashlight, and the flashlight has a high, medium, and low, and a max. So there's all kinds of light options there as well. And there's also a top light where you can run a beacon. So that light has a lot of great features and options for any kind of emergency situation. So Guardian Angel Elite or the Micro, I prefer the Elite for the vehicle. The Micro maybe for some smaller applications, but they both work great, especially at night when the light flashing really stands out. But you can see this is full daylight, and I'm using the green and orange function on here. I really like this light. So those are the things that I generally have in my vehicle, along with a few tools: crescent wrench, screwdriver, duct tape, pliers. Those are some channel lock pliers, by the way, so that you can adjust the size of them. Screwdriver. By the way, it's a multi-bit screwdriver, so make sure that you get a screwdriver where you have extra bits of different types in the handle. I really like this right here. This is the Klein tool. It's awesome. You have all the bits right here. Rotate those through. Yeah, this is a great thing. You also have a driver set on here, so you can tighten down bolts or nuts depending on which direction they're facing you. But you have just great 1/4-inch bit, and this is awesome. So the Klein tool, multi-tool, this is called the 20-in-1, and this is also impact rated. I forget to mention this. This is impact rated. So something like this in your vehicle covers a lot of ground. What else? Zip ties. Those are some kind of the basic things that are always in the vehicle. When I go on a longer trip, I may bring a socket set with me. I certainly have protection that I bring with me. When I'm not talking protection in the latex form, I'm talking about protection in the boom boom form. And then also maybe some supplies for like food, extra clothing, hat, gloves. You'd be surprised, especially in western Montana where it's very arid, it cools off fast. So a hat, gloves, and warm socks. Keep the extremities as warm as possible. That's something that you have to keep in mind depending upon where you live. So there you go. Watch, review, and a little bit more. My name is Tim. This has been another Real Ideal Gear review. I look forward to your comments. We'll catch you guys next time. You take this off and put a Timex, or you put a Timex on. You put a Casio on. Timex on. You put a Casio on. Timex on. You Timex on.